Hello, and welcome to the Blockchain Journal Club. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Perry.
How are you doing, Perry?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good. How was your weekend?
The same as any other weekday, even.
Oh, really? You just work on your PhD on the weekend?
Yeah, trying to wrap it up.
Okay. I would think that once you have your papers, you just paste everything together, no?
Yeah, you have to make an introduction, though. Conclusion.
Yeah, I'm kind of aiming to have my thesis, like to spend 1 month writing my thesis, you know?
I think that's doable.
Like
But
once the papers are done?
yeah, it's doable for sure. It's just a lot of putting in stuff that you have to repeat yourself a bunch of times. Abstracts.
Yeah, it's true, actually, because the intro would overlap, no, with the papers. Your thesis introduction overlaps with your paper introductions.
Well, I think my thesis introduction is more about the methods I used. So maybe for you, it would be like, what's machine learning? How does it work?
Yeah, you gotta do that.
What's gradient descent? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, I guess it's free pages, eh?
It's yeah, I don't know. It's just, I think you just summarize the main tools you use to write your papers.
Yeah, I know. I'm spending all day today trying to scrape a website. Sometimes there's like really horrible parts of like having to
learning
real data. You know, like I have to script the browser to click on buttons because the people who create these servers don't give you downloadable data or standalone software.
So you have to like constantly request it for all the different parameters you want.
Yeah, you have a page and you say, all right, you need a button. You write a script that searches the HTML for certain buttons and then clicks them, you know, and then uploads data and then like clicks download. It's such a nightmare. It's insane. I don't know why. I don't know. We're talking about this paper, like the paper that we're submitting, where we had trouble validating because no one publishes their code, you know. They publish their results and they go, yeah, these are results, and then you ask them for their code, and then you can't verify it yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, well, why are we submitting to the journal that accepts papers that do that? And I was like, well, I don't know, I guess because it has a higher impact factor, you know.
Well, there you go.
Everything, you know, it's a system. It's a problem system.
Yeah, hopefully Jerome doesn't watch this after you just bashed him.
I didn't bash him. I think he agrees with me, but you know, his hands are a bit tied, right?
I guess
there's certain journals that you wanna.
That's why we need a decentralized journal.
Yes, and that's why we need pair snarks, ZK Ozeki snarks.
Ozeki snarks, yeah.
Stay tuned for that, folks.
For sure.
Okay, let's get started.
Yes,
So today, I don't know. I guess things after the first few episodes, we realized maybe it's a good idea to structure the order in which we release things, and kind of group episodes by theme. And I guess the theme for now, since last episode, is Bitcoin, like addresses, you know, and wallets, I would imagine is the theme.
Yeah, I guess security in terms of what you can do to be as secure as possible.
Yeah, but also, I mean, I was looking at other papers about Bitcoin wallets, and there's some pretty interesting stuff. Like, I didn't know about hierarchical wallets and things like that.
So what are these?
I haven't read too much about it, but it seems it's like this kind of having one private key that generates multiple public keys. Seems to be a thing, and I think it's already implemented in Bitcoin, but the way they implemented it was not secure.
I think this is how TreasureWorks, though, right? Your 20 words generate a bunch of addresses.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, I've read about this.
But there's a paper on it that seems cool.
I think it's a standard practice.
You just generate a sequence, I think, and hash your key with that sequence or something.
Yeah, so it's pairwise, and then you can make new pairs and then hash them together and make a new address. And you can always go from the seed to any address very easily.
Yeah,
you can't go backwards in any way.
Yes, but the first Bitcoin implementation of that ended up being vulnerable. Okay. Like you could guess the secret key eventually if you had enough of the keys or something. Okay. So I think cool to look at that.
I think it's even in this Bitcoin book.
Ah, nice.
Again, I'm bringing it up again.
Yes. 500th author.
Yes.
I guess we should put a link to that book because it's a good resource.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway, today's paper is not really a paper, but it's quite related to what we talked about last week, which was exposing vulnerabilities in the way keys are constructed and kind of studies that have been made to scan the blockchains for these kinds of addresses. And the first one last week's was about brain wallets, which are these basically, instead of picking your secret key at random, some people decide to pick something that they can remember, and from that derive your public key. And that way you don't have to store the secret key anywhere, which is a plus, because if your computer gets hacked or if you misplace wherever you wrote down your secret key, then you're not at risk at losing your funds. But it's also kind of easy for someone to try to brute force a bunch of different secret keys and see if it matches any wallet on the blockchain with funds. Right.
Yeah, I guess so. If you don't pick this secret key safely or like properly, it can be more dangerous than just storing anything on your computer or hardware wallet.
Yeah. So that was a paper, and I think I forget how many wallets they found. Was it like 800 or something? That were brain wallets.
Or maybe that's this one, 800. I'm not sure.
This one wasn't really brain wallets. It was kind of a different thing.
But I mean, it's okay. This one had 732. Maybe I don't know what the number is for the other one. I can't remember.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a kind of a very small percentage of wallets that appear to be brain wallets, which is, I guess a good thing. So anyway, that was just kind of an interesting way, and it helped us kind of look at how wallets are generated. And this paper is called Ether Combing, Finding Secrets in Popular Places. Oh, wait, I should share my screen now, I guess.
Yeah, good idea.
Share screen, Brave browser. Boom. Shout out Brave browser. Have you claimed your BAT?
No, because I don't want to give my information.
Yeah, that's very upsetting. I tried to claim my BAT, and there's a whole sign-up process. You have to basically give your whole identity.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. I mean, we should just clone Brave and take away that feature. Maybe it's for like tax purposes or something, or like
I have no idea. Yeah.
Compliance. Anyway, so today's paper is called Ether Combing, Finding Secrets in Popular Places, and it's from this. I guess it's a company of crypto experts that basically, it looks like they kind of audit your code and make sure that your systems are safe. Seems pretty cool. And I don't know if you saw this, Perry, but it came with a little YouTube video from the guy that wrote the paper.
Yeah. So I found this paper from I think a Wired article. They linked to this paper, and it was it just like summarized this paper. But yeah, I saw this YouTube video.
The video?
Yeah.
I wonder if I play the video, if it goes on the. Do you hear that?
I don't.
You don't hear what the guy's saying? Oh, okay. Whatever. Anyway, you can watch that video. It's basically, I guess this is the guy who wrote the paper, explaining what he did in very simple terms, which is pretty nice.
Yep.
But I guess we'll go in detail through the whole thing. So this paper focused on Ethereum, so not Bitcoin. So Ethereum's a different kind of blockchain that you could say generalizes what Bitcoin can do in terms of the data that you can put in a transaction can give not just verification on transferring funds between two addresses, but actually perform more complicated computations, and that can also be verified. So you can start doing things like auctions, elections, gambling, and all this stuff on the blockchain in a decentralized way. And that came out in 2014. Maybe we'll do an episode on Ethereum in general at some point. But for our purposes, it's really just another blockchain with public addresses and money, right? Funds.
Yep.
Okay. So it says that there are 345 million transactions in Ethereum, and they're saying, well, so the way these transactions are made is behind them, they're all signed by a secret key. And everybody on this network is supposed to pick a secret key at random. And you can pick a secret key out of a total of 2 to the 256 possible secret keys, right? That's what we call the key space. And why is that? Is because if you think of a key as a binary string of zeros and ones, then we say that binary string can be 256 bits long. So it has 256 zeros and ones. And the total number of possible ways to pick zeros and ones in each entry of that string comes out to 2 to the 256th power, which is an insanely huge number. The guy in the video says, like, the chances that two people picking their keys at random ending up having the exact same secret key is, like, he said, like throwing a grain of sand into the ocean and then finding back that same grain of sand or something. It was a kind of like, it seemed, I didn't really fully get his analogy, but grains of sand is probably even way more likely than what this would be.
But even in the introduction, right, he gives an example, right? So like he says the probability of encountering, if you just look at the second sentence of the introduction, that's the abstract.
Oh, right. To cover 1% of the key space, that one?
Yeah, so the probability of the sentence right before, the probability of encountering a private key that corresponds to someone else's Ethereum address is around 1 to the 256.
Yeah.
To cover just 1% of that key space, even if we use computing resources that would allow us to generate 100 trillion keys per second, it would take us roughly years.
Man, that's so crazy. And like we said last episode, the number of atoms in the universe is 10 to the 80.
Yeah, so, which I think this is like 10 to the 78 or something.
Okay.
10 to the 256 or something, or 10 to the 77, something like that.
Yeah. So it's as large as numbers can get physically.
It's 1,000th of all the atoms in the universe.
Yeah.
So if all the atoms in the universe can compute one private key, you would need all of them.
Yeah. So it's a huge space, and if everyone's picking their secret keys randomly, then it's very unlikely that two will have the same one. So you can say that your secret key is secure, right? Because nobody's going to be able to sign away your money except for you, unless by some insane miracle, somebody else was able to generate the same secret key. Yeah.
So actually, people ask me sometimes, like, if it's random, how come, what happens if someone else picks the same key as you?
Yeah.
And I guess the point is it's almost impossible, right?
Yeah.
It'd have to be like
if you're doing it randomly, I guess. Right. If you're
so if you pick a random number, sorry.
Yeah.
If you pick a random number, it's almost impossible to reproduce that number.
Yeah. So the point is, if we're assuming that everything is done randomly and every key is just as likely as every other key to be generated, then, we don't really have much to do. But it's the real world and things don't happen in a perfect way. So there's always a small chance of things to go as we don't expect. Like we saw in the Bitcoin brain wallet paper, some people don't pick a key at random. And that means that two people, either someone could guess what key they used, or two people might end up by accident picking the same key. Because, the number, if you picked a key based on English words, then it's more likely that two people will pick the same English word than two people will think of the same 256-bit string.
Right. So how many English words are there?
I don't know. It's roughly 10,000, I think. Let's see.
So so it goes from 1 to the 10 to the 77 to 1 out of 10 to the 5.
Yeah.
It's a 10 to the 72 increase in your probability of guessing the same thing.
How many words are there in the English dictionary? If we had an assistant, I would ask him. Ooh, okay. Now we're looking at how many words in every language. Oh, 500,000 words. Wow, that's a lot more than I thought.
Well, it's a factor of 10, right?
Yeah.
So it's you need 10 to the 71 or something. Or 10 to
English is up there. English is up there.
Yeah.
Korean is at number 1 with 1 million words. Where's Greek, Perry? Ouch.
We have no words.
No words. Okay, but anyway, these numbers are a lot smaller than 256 bits of entropy. And maybe just to review, I found this was nice because they actually showed how the keys are generated. So what happens is first you pick a random key, a random number, and that's your secret key. So
and this, just to be clear, this number is written in hex, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. So for, I guess it's more compact. Instead of
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. 16, right?
Base 16, yeah.
So yeah, binary goes from 0 to 1. So each entry in your string is either 0 or 1. Decimal is from 0 to 9. So you have 9 digits. In hexadecimal, you have 16 digits. So you have the first 9 digits, and then you have letters up to H, I believe.
F, no?
F. Yeah. F.
Yeah, so 10 is A, right? 11 is B, 12 is C, 13 D, 14 E, 15 F.
Yeah.
And 16 is, I guess, 1 with a 0.
And how many bits, how many hexadecimal bits does 256 boil down to? Just like, what's the length of this?
One hex digit is 2 to the 4, right?
One hex digit is 2 to the 4. Yes, 16.
So you have to divide that by 4, basically.
Yeah.
So what's 256 divided by 4? It's like 64 or something? Maybe 32? 64, more likely.
64. Yeah, 64. Okay, yeah. Okay. So it's this is 64 characters.
I hope so. I should be. Yeah.
So you pick this at random. This is your private key. Nobody's going to ever know that. And you go through, if you pick it at random, yes. If you say ABC123, you can encode ABC123 in hexadecimal and use that as your secret key. No one's going to stop you from doing that. And then basically...
You're talking about the string ABC123, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just encode that, right? In this array. And that's your starting point. And then from there, basically the rest is a deterministic process. So what happens in order to convert that into a public key or to derive a public key from it, you apply this elliptical curve derivation algorithm that gives you your basically your public key. And we talked about it yesterday with these elliptical curves. So essentially you raise this point to some exponent and that gives you your public key, right, Perry?
Yeah, but not yesterday, last week, I guess.
Oh, not yesterday, last week. Jeez, it really feels like yesterday. So yeah, that's your public key. And what you actually share on the network is not directly your public key, is actually a hash of your public key. So this KEKAK 256, I believe, is just a SHA style hash, which I guess reduces the size of your public key and also adds a bit of security. So it gives you this string, which is the output of hashing your public key. And for Ethereum, you only take the first or the last 160 bits. So you basically truncate this hash output, and the last 160 digits or hexadecimal digits become your Ethereum address.
Yep.
So that's what's public. And knowing that, it's very difficult or almost impossible for someone to go backwards in these steps and guess what your private key would be.
Yeah, so every one of these vertical arrows is like a layer of security if you want.
Yeah. Does Bitcoin do this truncation thing? Yeah.
I'm not sure if they do the truncation.
Or they just like hash it down with directly.
I'm not sure, but the idea, I guess, is similar, right?
Yeah.
Private key to public key and then public key to address with a hash.
Yeah.
I don't know which digits they take.
In Bitcoin, yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's the full thing or just the last 160. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So this equation here summarizes how to get a public key. So essentially, you apply an elliptic curve to your private key, then you apply a 256-bit hash to that output, and then you truncate the last 160 bits to get a final public address, right?
Yep.
Cool. I found that was a nice little summary. Okay, so given that, they said, okay, well, are there any irregularities in the way people are picking private keys? So is there any evidence that this is not being done perfectly at randomly or as close to random as possible? And actually, maybe we can show an Ether scan here. So all the public addresses, these Ethereum addresses, are visible on the blockchain. So anybody has access to them. You can see how much Ethereum, how many Ether are associated with each address. And since that's publicly available data, this is kind of where this experiment started.
Next line has the URL.
Oh, the link, eh?
No, but the next line, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this is, I believe this was a special address, no?
No, I think it's just.
Oh no, it's just from the example. Okay, yeah. So this address that we generated in the example, we can look at it in what's called a blockchain explorer, which is just the blockchain data presented nicely in a website format. So you can go to this website, etherscan.io, and there's the same thing for Bitcoin. You can type in any address, so what we saw in the example, and it'll tell you the balance. So this address has 0 Ether, and we can see the transaction history. So it looks like there were 2 transactions on this address. So there we go. Now, so now that we have this public address, we know that there exists some secret key that gives us this address. And what the people in this paper were trying to do is see if they could guess secret keys that give a known address on the blockchain. And the way that they guess these addresses, these secret keys, is in a way that was not random. And if they manage to find any keys that are any addresses that are derived from these keys on the blockchain, that means that some non-random process was being used to generate these addresses with a probability, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the main source of non-fully random secret keys, and I guess you can think of a secret key kind of as a seed, right? It's like a first random number that you select that then from which you can derive everything else, right? So anyway, but let's call them secret keys, I guess. So they said sometimes computers or the wallets that generate these keys can have bugs. And the most common type of bug was that the compiler or something truncates your seed or your secret key. So for some reason, you actually generate, a random string of 256 bits, and all of a sudden your computer chops it and essentially sets a bunch of the string to 0 and only leaves a tiny bit, like 8 bits at the end that were actually generated by you, which effectively reduces the entropy in your key by a huge factor, right? Because now instead of having a possible space of 256 bits, 2 to the 256, now you're looking at only 2 to the 8 if your key was truncated down to 8 bits. Or in this case, 32 in hexadecimal. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I didn't know about these like truncation errors. That was kind of interesting to me. But
yeah, but I
gotta watch out.
Sure, but I'm wondering even if people maybe just picked random things,
Oh yeah, the other option is that you just like use the key like 3, right? And then you would end up having zeros everywhere except for a few bytes.
Or like some small word that you encode in that space, right?
Yeah, that's the other source. So either like your compiler screwed up and truncated your secret key, or
you didn't pick anything random.
Yeah, you didn't pick anything random, in which case you don't need all those bits to encode whatever you picked. You only need a very small number of bits.
Setting everything else to 0.
It looks like your key had all zeros except for like the last 8 entries, right?
Yeah. So these are valid keys. They're just, if you know beforehand that people are picking keys like this, it turns out it's a horrible thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess given this, you would want to check your secret keys, right? For like truncation errors, I would imagine.
Yeah. So if you're honestly, I generating things by yourself seems tricky already, right? Like all this stuff can go wrong.
Well, no, but this isn't by yourself. This is with some of these are compiler errors,
Sure, but let's say you want to make a brain wallet and encode it somehow.
Yeah.
Like hash some word and then like use that as your seed.
Yeah.
you still got to make sure your word is big enough, or whatever the hash output is the right thing.
Yeah.
It feels like so many things can go wrong.
Never do it yourself is what Claude Crypto said.
Yeah,
never build your own crypto system.
Yeah, hope that someone smarter than you figured it out already.
But that's why I found this crazy, because someone smart already did, and they made a compiler that screwed it up, you know? Like I input my key, you know, I flip a coin 256 times.
Yep.
I give it to the computer and it chops off, 248 bits. Yeah. Which is crazy. And I guess, yeah, like Perry said, I mean, it's not that your key is any less valid or random now. Like you could have randomly picked this key, right? But now that it's known that this is a possible way of keys being biased, like it's more likely that this key will happen than any other random key, because these kinds of things do happen. Then people are more likely to guess, look for a key with that structure.
Well, they're incentivized to guess that structure, right? Because it turns out it's disproportionately present or probable in the sample of all keys.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So here they showed, I believe this, that's just a screen. No.
I think
the key of 0. Yeah. So they looked at what happened if anybody used a private key of basically the number 1. So you can choose a private key to be the number 1. And since it's kind of an obvious, stupid thing, it's possible that some people did it. So they went and from this secret key, which is just the number 1, they derived the public key, and they look up the public key that comes from, and it's this long string 7E5F445, and they looked it up on the Etherscan browser, and we can do the same.
Yeah, so they found 592 transactions. I wonder if we find more now.
There are now 856 transactions.
Wow. So there have been like 300 or 250 extra transactions since this paper was written.
And it has a balance of 0. So it's possible that, 2
hours ago. 2 hours ago.
Yeah, so people are creating these wallets, and someone is instantly like draining them, right?
Within a minute.
Yeah, this guy drained it, and he has $384. Whoa, no, $7,000. Hey, this guy has $7,000.
Well, actually, can you go back and just see, like how much was a transaction for?
This one was for 0.0001 Ether.
Yeah, okay, so these are not much. It's probably people just testing stuff out, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. And, some of them are tokens, right?
Sure, tokens can also go here.
Cool. All right, so yeah, one possible secret key is the number 1. We should say that 1 is still 256 bits, because you can have 1 followed by 255 zeros, and that's still
the opposite,
a correct size.
0
followed by
depending 255 zeros.
Depending on big endian or little endian.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's depending on how you order the value of each entry in the string, in the bit string. So yeah, they found 592 transactions to this dummy private key of zeros.
We just found more though.
Yeah, so now, since the paper came out, when did it come out actually?
I think last year. April.
Last April 23rd, 2019. Oh, cool.
So in 1 year, there have been 250 extra transactions to this ridiculous address.
Yeah. Okay, so that was just kind of like a little warm-up exercise to see if that kind of thing exists, and it looks like there are keys out there like that. So yeah, these are kind of the possible sources that could make your keys weaker, right? What we talked about was code logic errors. So, whatever code you use to generate your key has a bug, and it, for some reason, deletes some entries of your key. Type confusion, I'm not sure what that is. Entropy errors, random device errors. Yeah.
I mean, these are the errors of, I guess, you sample something random from a distribution that's not actually random, right?
Yeah, overall. But I mean, they have different causes, right? Like,
no, but I think entropy
device errors.
I think the device is broken.
Okay. Okay, so the device is not actually sampling
uniformly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then random device errors, I guess, I mean, I think was it Clark Poe said, computers are still random. There's still always a possibility that it's going to give you something wrong.
Sure.
Like maybe some electron just messed up a bit and now it's a 1 instead of a 0. So I guess that can happen. Memory reference errors. So these are kind of like implementation / hardware errors. Malware compromise. I guess maybe some virus can go on your computer that generates like non-random keys instead of random ones, and
so they know. So the attacker knows which key you're using, maybe.
Yeah, crazy. But okay, so I guess we should, at this level, like what could you do to prevent this? I guess you should look at your secret key, right? Because all of these, some of these will look like the truncation, and then maybe you can say, ooh.
Sure, but I think some won't, and you'll still have.
That's true. Yeah.
I think you have to use a trust, so at one point you have to trust something, right?
Yeah, even if it's just physics.
So I think there's a hardware wallet that lets you just literally roll a die like 50 times and input the value,
Right.
So you can generate the randomness yourself, right? So you pick a die, you roll it, I don't know.
Are there 16-sided die?
Well, you don't really need a 16-sided die, right?
No, I know, but it would be cool if there was a hexadecimal die.
To roll it like 64 times, you mean?
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's some common multiple of, 6 and 16 and 6 where you just roll it and you just need a source of randomness, right? It could be a coin. Yes. Flip a coin 256 times, input that in, and then you're sure that you've picked something random, right?
Well, it depends because, at the level of sampling a random key, but it could be that you've sampled you've entered your random key, and then after that, downstream something messes it up, right? That's what this truncation thing is. You start with a random key, some code error sets everything to 0 except for the first 8 bits.
Oh no, what I'm saying is if you want it to be perfectly secure, you would flip a coin 256 times. Yeah. Generate your address. Write down the key. Mm-hmm. Exactly, on paper.
Yes, but you have to derive your public key at a certain point, right?
Yeah, but you can always check that your private key. Yeah.
Yes.
You can just send addresses to an address that the private key from your piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then every time you want to access it, though, you have to punch in those 256 bits.
Yeah.
It's probably super annoying.
And remember them.
Yeah. Alternatively, you can just, I don't know. I think hardware wallets maybe are the best thing. Like you have to, there's always going to be a possibility that you yourself make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
So you have to pick a balance between trusting someone and avoiding making the mistakes.
But what mistake could you make if you're flipping coins, right?
I mean, what if the first time you do it, you derive the address wrong?
Oh no, but I'm assuming that everything downstream of generating a private key is without errors.
Sure. What if there's a truncation error at the level of the public key, for example? There's always a possibility
but then you wouldn't be able to then there will be a mismatch between your secret and your public, right?
That's right. So you send all your money to some address that doesn't correspond to your private key.
No, but you could probably just try to sign the public key using the derived public key using your actual secret key, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying there's always going to be a possibility of making a mistake somewhere, right? Sure. You can also run your random number generator a bajillion times and make sure it's uniformly distributed across the whole space.
Yeah, but if it's a coin toss, it's a coin toss. Don't worry. Imagine in the world where we're doing a coin toss. Mm-hmm. You write down your zeros and ones, and then from there on, what could go wrong is you get an invalid public key, right?
Sure.
Because mathematically, there's a relationship between your secret key and there's a correct public key, right? And if anything goes wrong in between that, you'll notice.
But I thought your question was, what should you do if you don't want to trust the computer?
Well, I guess my point is that a lot of these probably come from generating the key on the computer, right?
Yeah. So what you could do if you wanted to fix that is just generate a bunch of keys,
mm-hmm.
And just check that they're sampled uniformly.
Yeah.
Check here. There's no peaks or valleys in your
mm-hmm.
in the outputs, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. My dog is barking. Okay, so that was basically background and intro. And they did a very simple experiment with that, which was, all right, well, they can't possibly enumerate all possible, by the way, right, it's 64 bits, the key. They can't enumerate all possible secret keys and see, if there's any overrepresented ones. But they can do, since they notice that sometimes there's these like truncation errors and things that chop up the key space in a specific way, they decided to look at that.
So yeah. Sorry, the 64-bit you just showed me, I think they're just saying that they cannot enumerate all keys in the 64
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So they have to pick something smaller.
Yeah.
Which is 32 bits.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's what this picture is going to say. So basically you can imagine your full key being 256 bits. And sometimes, you won't, like we said, you might end up with some kind of truncation or putting a stupid key that only fills up a part of the possible key space. So they decide to individually enumerate all possible secret keys with that have non-zero entries in one of these windows.
In only one of those windows, right?
In only one of these windows, yes. I guess they could have picked like combinations, but so they say, okay, well, let's look at region A, and region A is the bits from 0 to 32.
So they can't pick combinations, right?
No, I mean it would be much too slow.
They say in the beginning that going over 32, like going to 64, is impossible for them.
Yeah, although they didn't super use a lot of resources, but I guess it jumps really hard.
I guess it's a proof of concept though.
Yeah. So what they did, go on.
It's exponential.
Yeah. So I mean, a laptop is enough for this, but maybe you need 5 supercomputers once you add a second window.
Yeah.
So what they do is they split it up into 8 parts.
Yep.
Yeah. So you divide the whole 256 bit into 8 parts of 32 bits, and within each slice, you can afford to compute all possible keys that have a non-zero entry in this 0 or non-zero. All keys that have zeros in every other window, except for a specific one, right?
Yeah.
So that for each one of them, you would have 2 to the power of 32 possible keys, right?
So 4 billion.
Around 4 billion combinations per region. Yeah. So in total, they did 4 times 8 billion keys.
Yeah, so it's 32 billion keys total.
Yeah. So they kind of illustrated what that would look like. So for group A, which is all the keys that have entries at the rightmost slice of 32 bits, is all the keys from 0 to FFFFF, which is the highest digit in hexadecimal. So everything in that range is what they called group A. And they kind of just move this window over along the whole key space. So they're on groups A to H, right?
Yep. Yeah, so they just generate all these keys, compute the corresponding addresses. So now in principle, they have all of the secret keys for all of these addresses.
Yeah.
And then one by one, they just go through them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they just check one by one if there's money or ether in any of these addresses. And if they find money in any of these addresses, well, it's like they own that money, right? Or they have the credentials to move that money around.
Yeah, exactly. So they have a list of all, I forget how many million addresses were on Ethereum.
32 billion roughly.
32, yeah. So they said they have it's really fast to check whether your key that you derive is one of those. And if it is one of those publicly known addresses, then you know that one of the addresses has this secret key, which is not fully random.
Yeah, so they just query the blockchain for all the addresses that correspond to the private keys that are given from one of these slices. And they check which ones have ever had money. Right?
Yes,
and then
exactly.
And then they just plot in this figure 5. So in red, they have all the addresses that come from the A slices. So that's the most, probably because of this truncation error. In blue, they have all the addresses that come from this, the last slice, so the H slice. And that's maybe because, they were in big endian versus little endian.
Yeah.
And then they find a few addresses from the slices in between.
Wait, what I found weird was they use red for, the y-axis is the keys within the slice, right? So yes. From 0 to all Fs, within each slice, right?
Yeah, so it looks like, people were just picking like very low valued things as private keys, right? Because you have this line at 0, like FF,
Yeah. So this is the main figure, right?
Yeah, it's the main figure.
So yeah, I mean, I guess the main thing here is that, as they expected, most I don't know what we should call these addresses, but most non-secure keys were either at the beginning of the bit string or at the end of the bit string, right?
Yeah. Key space. I mean, they go into detail in the next sections, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's group A there.
So group A has the most, right?
8,920 transactions.
Yeah, from 464 accounts or private keys. 29 ether roughly.
Yeah. And then the middle one's nothing, eh?
Well, very few. This is probably some people that thought they were smart by just shifting the number 1, to like the...
Really? Why would they be smart about that?
I mean, they thought they were like clever and like picking something they could remember. Sorry?
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, I mean, because you can remember which window maybe they remember like E
and
then like 27,
Yeah.
And that corresponds to some key in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been fun. But it was like 4.
Yeah, they found 4 with, I guess, almost no money.
I mean, that could have been securely generated.
What's weird is if you go up, it says like the total amount of ether transferred was less than 0.
Nice.
So they produced money by making these accounts.
Wow.
I don't know if that's a typo or like some fees were paid. I don't know what that means.
But I was wondering, it would have been feasible for them to actually do a sliding window, no? And not split into windows?
So that would be, we said, so there are 256 bits. So it would be 32 times 256 minus 32.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 4 billion.
I mean, it's just a constant factor.
Yeah, but I think the factor is like times 100 or something, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So it's like going from 32 billion to like 300 or, trillions of keys.
They could have done that. And then you'd catch the ones like that are kind of on the borders.
Yes, but you probably double count them, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just, yeah. I think they just did something simple to show you that people are actually not maybe taking this as seriously as they should.
Because I mean, it's kind of arbitrary that the window would be 8 bits, I don't know. I mean, it's probably not super arbitrary because it's binary, but still.
I think the idea though is like you expect the first and last window to have stuff.
Yeah.
And the middle windows, I think, are just saying, well, we might as well just check those out. They find nothing in them anyways, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the first window here, and they found 3.3 ether of transactions in these windows, in this window.
So still 264 private keys.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the cool thing here was that they discovered like one guy that had a crazy amount of ether from this.
Well, yeah, don't they make a transaction?
Yeah,
they do. See how long it takes him to like rip it out?
Yeah, that was fun. So wait, I guess what they did was they found, they just kind of like manually went through the transactions that they found, right? And they saw that one person, like this one, had like a sort of income of these wallets, right?
Yeah. So I think, yeah. So they just, I mean, they say it, right? Noting that the blockchain bandit has amassed millions worth of ether through 5,400 transactions, we wanted to see how quickly funds would be looted if we populate an Ethereum address we hold common knowledge of the private key to.
So what they did was like they noticed that a lot of the transactions with the structure of like zeros everywhere except for one window, a lot of those keys were going to this address, right? Like basically they found someone who was using this strategy to guess secret keys, no?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that what you said there about the all zeros except one thing, but I know, yeah, they found someone that was instantaneously pulling funds out.
Oh, this guy has $9 million on chain.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's the blockchain bandit.
They call him the blockchain bandit. Yeah.
Yeah, and so to test to test whether or not this guy's actually like trying to identify these insecure keys and automatically draining their funds, they made a dummy transaction, right? Well, not a dummy. They made a real transaction
for $1.
Yeah, and I guess they used one of the ones that are in the middle region, right?
So I think they claim that they know that he has pulled money out of this address before, right?
Oh, okay. I thought that both IC and the blockchain bandit have knowledge of it. Okay, so so I guess he was.
So they know that money has been transferred from this address to the blockchain bandit's address.
Yeah.
So they make a transaction to this address and see how long it takes for him to pull that out.
But I guess he could also, I mean, that could have been his address, right?
Well, if it's his address and they know it
himself.
Sure. Yeah, I guess. But I think the point is that they have evidence that he's taking money from other addresses as well, right?
Sure. Like automatically, right? Because it happened after how much time?
No, I know, but I think they say
like I don't know how they found out like what his strategy was, you know?
So I think they go to this. They just say that they find the paragraph right under blockchain bandit.
Yeah.
They just say that in the B group, right? Mm-hmm. They find at this whatever 0x4000000 address.
Mm-hmm.
They find that someone pulled the money out and sent it to this other address, right?
Yeah.
And they refer to this guy as the blockchain bandit. And they find that he's actually pulled money, like he has $6.1 million or something.
Mm-hmm.
So they see like, okay, let's see what happens if we just send money to this address.
Yeah.
So if it's your address, there's no reason to monitor it, right, for new transactions.
I guess so, yeah.
I guess there could be, but I mean, the point is, if it's your address and you get free money, why would you pull it out?
Mm-hmm.
They send it there and they see within like less than a second or whatever.
Yeah.
They with less than a minute, he's pulled out the money.
Yeah.
And he puts a high transaction fee, I think, to get it mined very quickly.
So, but this guy must be using other strategies, right? Because they didn't find that much big ether using their approach.
Right? Yeah, so maybe he knows probably of other addresses.
Yeah.
So in the last paper from last week, they talked about how people with old ASICs or old GPUs just spend time making these hash tables.
Mm-hmm.
And then when a transaction goes to one of the tables they have a private key for, it pings and they just pull all the money out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but they need a way to
systematically check this.
Building these hash tables either like in the last paper by listing a bunch of possible sources of passwords.
Sure.
Or like this one, like enumerating sort of truncated keys.
Yeah.
But this guy must have a different strategy, right? Because
sure.
What these guys did was not enough to account for.
Yeah. So maybe he's done, like you said, maybe he's done 64 bits, you know?
Yeah. Or used probably also targeted brain wallets, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Right?
And maybe in different languages as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe this is probably his job. He has $9 million from this. So
yeah, it could be a job. I don't know why he hasn't sold. It's crazy.
It's true. But they said like something ridiculous. Like his money at one point was like hundreds of millions or something.
It was 44 million, I think.
Okay, yeah.
54 million at the peak.
Yeah.
And in the video, the guy says, I think we should feel bad for him because he lost $40 million.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Do you hear a buzzing right now?
I don't hear buzzing, no.
That's weird. Man, I think my microphone might be messed up. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so the funny thing is after they check this empty passphrase, right?
Oh, yeah. But passphrases are not the same thing, right?
So this one right here.
Yeah.
So they look at the parity wallet, which I think had a problem by just giving these, or not a problem, but people could generate brain wallets basically, and they just checked the brain wallet generated from the empty character string. Yeah,
I think it just had an option of like hitting enter without with a blank entry. Yeah.
And they found 8,772 transactions for a total of 5,000 Ether.
Yeah.
You know? And I think I guess the problem, so if this address is very active and being monitored for inbound transactions, which are immediately transferred out to one of the many private key holders watching this address. So there are many people like fighting for these transactions.
Yeah, like the paper we saw last time.
Were there many people fighting for the same transactions?
Well, no, but we assumed that since addresses with high balances go faster, get drained faster, then people kind of compete for them.
Yeah. So the point is like, people, in 1 month, May of 2018, there was like 2,500 transactions to this address.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, right?
I guess maybe some people are just playing, eh?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I bought a t-shirt with Ether. I was just playing. I spent 3 Ether on a t-shirt, folks. Yeah. Which now is probably like a reasonable thing to pay for a t-shirt.
Well, 3 Ether is like $600 or something, right?
Is it? Okay, I have no idea what Ether is.
I mean, at one point it was like $3,000. So
yeah. That was
and anyways, they do the same thing for the all zero address.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They check that, but the problem is no one has a private key for that.
Yeah, so that's where people lose their funds forever.
Yeah, so people have lost 7,289 Ether.
Yeah.
That you can't pull out, right? Because
no
one knows.
That you do by like accidentally sending your transaction to the zero address. And gone.
Or thinking you're funny and like buying, or like just sending it there for fun,
I mean, that must be some kind of software bug, right?
Maybe.
I mean, who would like type in all zeros?
Maybe if you hit enter or something, it just assumes an empty string.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
7,000 Ether.
There's really a lot of pitfalls to this, eh? Like even, I don't know. How do you know that Trezor is not just changing your destination key when you create it,
Yes, that's the point. You got to pick a balance between like making the mistake yourself and trusting somebody, right? Because in principle, we could all do this. I mean, in principle.
With pigeons.
Pigeons? Oh, sure. But I'm saying you could code this whole thing yourself, right?
Yes.
But at one point, you should trust somebody that did it properly. It makes it much more convenient for you.
But also coding it yourself, there's a higher chance that you'll code it wrong.
Exactly.
Yourself, yeah.
So you got to pick a balance between the security of trusting yourself and the trust that you place in someone else. So you sacrifice some security for convenience, basically.
But at a certain point, I mean, you can have some visual checks, right? Like, when you use a Trezor, you look at the key, like, does it say, it says, do you want to send to this key? And you look it on the screen and you click OK. Now, you have to hope that at that point, after you've clicked OK, that it doesn't somehow change what you actually said OK to afterwards. Yeah,
but also, like, when you hit enter on your computer, you have to hope there's no truncation error. And the address you input isn't truncated and sent to this weird thing, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, at every point, it can get messed up.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I guess the hardware wallet is the most convenient thing. It's the best like convenience to security ratio I think we can get.
Or, I mean, maybe this is more for a different episode, but I guess all of this can be added up, right? All these errors and, attacks can be added up to a certain value that's lost from this currency, right? Like, on average, X amount of ether is lost because of implementation or human error. And you have to weigh that against, whatever problems come from a centralized, whatever cost comes from using a centralized system.
Yeah, but I think if we just build good enough tools, right?
Sure.
Open source tools that are good enough, you suppress these errors, and then,
I mean, you hope, yeah. I mean, still, this is quite rare, all this stuff that these guys are talking about, right? Out of millions of wallets, they only found a handful that had.
Yeah, so out of 47 million, I think, they found 800 or something.
Yeah.
Right, and after, 54 million dollars worth of ether, and I don't know what the market cap of Ethereum is ether is right now. I'll look that up really quick.
What is it?
22 billion.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess it's still substantial. Okay, but this is volume, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the same amount could be stolen more than once, I guess.
True. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've always just wanted to see what's the cost of centralized systems. Like that would just be a nice number to have. It's very easy to quantify it for blockchain. But, I mean, in order to have the convenience of like insurance on your transactions, you pay for that, so it'd be cool to know.
So you're measuring the cost in terms of money lost divided by the total available money or something?
I guess, yeah. Or like for every transaction that occurs that was either like sent to the wrong address or got drained or something. I guess draining is more of a wallet thing, but there's just like a probability that something will go irreversibly wrong, and there's an amount associated in terms of ether or Bitcoin to that.
Yeah, so you got to compare that to like all the banking fees, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Divided by all the money.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know how that compares.
I mean, I guess it's not that much at the level of the individual, right? I mean, you can have a savings, a checking account for like nothing almost.
Yeah, so I'm guessing though, bigger companies pay a lot more money, right?
Really? I would imagine that they pay less because they're providing more like investable.
No, but don't you have to pay like every time you want a money order, or I don't know, these weird things that people with money do?
I don't know. I've heard that like, if you have a bank account with like over a few $1 million, you get treated like a prince,
Okay.
And because I mean, they use that money to make more money.
Yeah, but one sec though. I know like doing a wire transfer costs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it's better to compare,
if not hundreds of dollars, right?
That's true. Yeah, so you can transfer billions of dollars in Bitcoin at a cost of zero almost, right?
$1, whatever.
Although you have to like divide that by the expected value of it being lost, like subtract the expected value that it gets lost.
Sure.
So if there's like a 10% probability that it gets lost, multiply that by the 5 billion, and that's your
cost. Why you add it all up, right? You average it. So in the centralized system, you average all the wire transfers that have ever taken place, and how much were paid for those.
Yeah.
Divided by how much was sent, and then the other thing, you take like all the money lost divided by how much money was sent, and that gives you a comparable number probably.
For sure.
But also Bitcoin, right? It's in a matter of hours you get your money.
True.
Wire transfers, it could be days, if not weeks.
So wire transfers are the only way you can send money like internationally, right?
I think so. I'm not really sure, but I think. And the person has to go to the bank, show their ID.
Yeah.
Make sure you didn't mess up like the putting in their address and their name.
Mm-hmm. But if you do mess it up,
Yeah, you pay $100, but you get your money back probably.
Yeah. So I mean, there needs to be concrete numbers on this, right? Like if a billionaire is going to send money to a different country, they need to know like what, which one's overall worth it,
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool because I guess it can sort of be approximated somehow.
But the billionaire would also probably have to, like, to buy Bitcoin today, they'd have to wire transfer to an exchange.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. No, but we have to imagine a world where Bitcoin is king and accepted. Or I mean, whatever, you wire transfer once to get a bunch of Bitcoin, and then you live in Bitcoin. You know,
I'm sure people have thought about this or calculated some stuff about this.
Right? I mean, it'd be cool to find a paper about that.
Yeah, maybe next week. Who knows?
I read like this paper about medical records, and I thought they were going to make a comparison like that because they talk about like, okay, let's compare this to like SQL. You know, what kind of like centralized database management system is being used, and let's see how blockchain compares. But they didn't really go very deep. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's weird to me that this stuff isn't super evident in terms of dollars.
But I think the point also, you know, a lot of it is individual responsibility. There's probably a lot of variance in how much money is lost depending on who's using the blockchain.
Maybe. I mean, some of these errors look like you almost have no control over, right?
Yeah, but I think as time passes, you get, people and software will get better.
Yeah.
At avoiding these mistakes.
Yeah.
Like the banking system has been around for hundreds of years.
That's true.
This has been around for 10 or something. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that there are some errors in the beginning. I don't know. It's speculation.
It's true because it seems like, it's kind of an arms race, right? Because you're also competing, like trying to outpace the attackers in a way. So, I mean, I'm sure it's the same with banks, right? They come up with some level of security and then it gets broken, and
I guess the banks are insured. The banks are probably insured though, right?
Yeah. So that
means the insurance,
like at a certain point, banks gave up, right? At a certain point, banks were like, "All right, we're just going to pay for insurance instead of trying to make banks more secure." And maybe this will happen on blockchain too, you know?
Yeah, but I'm sure the insurance companies force the banks to have better security, right?
Of course, yeah. But to a point, because then otherwise they wouldn't pay for insurance if they had perfect security.
Sure, but the premium just goes up if you have bad security. The insurance companies just charge you for how secure you are.
Okay, sure. Maybe there's an insurance company that charges 1 cent because it's like, yeah, you're pretty safe.
No, but I mean, like the banks have to pick a balance between paying for insurance and having a secure enough system where the insurance premium is so low they can afford it, right?
Yeah.
They can't just have like a wooden box in the back of the room and be like, yeah, I'll pay for insurance if someone steals this wooden box, you know?
Yeah.
They need a vault.
It's already these things for Bitcoin, right? I mean, we looked into it a little bit, like these Bitcoin vaults and that they're insured and all this stuff. Like it's kind of starting to come up.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is interesting. I mean, like you're right. I think there's a certain point where you can make this like almost bulletproof, right? And it's a competition in a way.
So eventually, probably what's going to happen, there will be a Bitcoin bank, and you'll go there with your hardware wallet, give it to them, and they'll store it for you, and they'll buy insurance on that for you, and all this stuff.
Yeah,
there's a possibility that this becomes the new bank, I guess, the new banking system.
For sure, but I guess it's still more convenient because, I guess you start from the gold standard, and gold started off not as convenient as Bitcoin, and then you just end up in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm reading about this stuff now, like deflation and inflation.
You have a reference?
Well, I mean, I go on mises.org, mises.org.
Okay.
So this is more of an economics thing, but a lot of the Bitcoin people are kind of like libertarians, and Ludwig von Mises was kind of like the father of libertarians. So they have a bunch of like ebooks and articles, so basically the libertarians are like, use the gold standard. We don't trust the government to like control our money supply. And then they write articles like deflating the deflation.
No, but how do you use gold though? I want to buy a piece of bread. Like I have to take a hammer and smash my gold into little flakes.
No, but you do what happened in real life. You pay with a note that says you have gold, and then
okay, so they want the gold standard.
Yeah, they want the gold standard. Yeah, no, yeah. I guess they don't say like use physical gold, but at least like the dollar should be backed by gold because
or something. Yeah,
you can create artificial inflation. And then on the other hand, it's like, well, inflation is bad because then nobody wants to spend and the prices go down like crazy. So I don't know. This is stuff that I have no idea about. But I mean, I've read I read a good book in here, actually, like a legit book. What happened to our money? What did they do to our money? What did government do to our money? Something like that. I'll find the link. It was a book about using the gold standard. I forgot what it is now. But it was like, it kind of explains money in a very nice way. All that to say that, I guess responsibility is a big thing in these kinds of things.
Yeah. So I guess even if we go to a standard where Bitcoin is like this, banknotes are backed by Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You could still, as an individual, not rely on the bank and do everything yourself if you wanted, right?
In the real world?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could have your cash under the mattress. Yeah.
Yeah, the bank has a special place now because you need the bank to write a check or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't carry $1 million in cash. I mean, maybe you can, but...
Well, no. I mean, at least not across the border, for example.
Sure. But the point is, Bitcoin maybe offers you the ability to do things yourself or trust the bank if you wanted
to. Yeah, that's true. You're right. I mean, to me, it's superior in every way. Absolutely.
Just gotta get our moms to use it.
That's the next step. I mean, my mom's like, yes, Bitcoin, go for it. And then, she doesn't know how to use it. So it's, the thing is, I'm pretty sure it's already usable by moms, right?
Not sure. I think I think internet was usable by moms for a long time before moms actually used it.
But, I mean, it's true. It's true. So I guess it just takes, at a certain point, technology is done, and then you just have to wait for society to take over.
They have to be incentivized to make, like, they have to be incentivized to use it, right? Like maybe Facebook was that incentive for moms.
Yeah, I mean, not to quote Crepeau again in this episode for the third time. Like at a certain point, it's going to become expensive enough that people will look to alternatives, right? Like real money will become expensive enough.
Yeah, maybe.
And I guess...
You mean using real money?
Yeah, like
using
we said.
Fiat money. Yeah, the bank will be whatever, yeah.
Like we said, I mean, it's still kind of up in the air, at least to me, whether it's going to happen that it's not convenient to use real money anymore, you know?
I mean, money is becoming digital. Bitcoin is already digital. Like the cash thing is going to die very soon, probably.
Oh, like physical cash?
They're probably equivalent at this point, you know?
Well, I guess Bitcoin is still somehow traceable.
Sure. Except now, so money is probably traceable, the digital money, just by central authorities.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything about this stuff, but it seems like they're already kind of equivalent.
Yeah.
In terms of usability. So this is the book?
Yeah, this is a book. It's a very nice book. It's pretty short. I recommend it, Perry.
I'll check it out. What has government done to our money?
Yeah, it's a very dramatic title. Horrible, horrible cover.
It's ripped up money.
Very not classy. Yeah. I think the first half is worth reading because it actually gives you like the history of how like money became a thing.
Okay, cool.
And then there's this law of like cheap money drives out good money or something. Gresham's law. Yeah. Let's do an episode on Gresham's law.
Okay.
Gresham's law.
Gresham, no?
Bad money drives out good. Huh? How about that? A little bit of economics there.
There you go.
Anyway, I guess, yeah, we can slide into social stuff. But the point is, like last episode, at the end, for now, things are kind of like the Wild West, right? So if you lose what you have, it's gone. That's the only time, I guess, that it happened historically that a hack was kind of rescued was with the DAO, right?
Yeah.
Which I didn't follow super closely, but I guess they ended up having to do a hard fork.
To recover those funds, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know like how the hack happened.
I think the person that wrote the contract made a variable or a function not private.
Okay.
So anyone can call this function to just empty the money.
And nobody noticed.
Nobody noticed that it wasn't a private function, and someone just tried to call it.
Oh.
And they just called it, and they just dumped the money somewhere, you know?
Can you imagine coding for millions of dollars? That's insane.
Yeah, that's why I think you need these auditors and stuff now. You know?
Yeah, that's a whole service, right?
Sure.
Which one? Open Zeppelin, I guess, does that?
I don't know if the auditors, don't they just make?
I think they do both.
Okay.
Open Zeppelin. Maybe, well, I guess we should save this for our Ethereum episode.
Sure.
Open Zeppelin, standard for secure blockchain applications, provides tools to write, deploy, operate. We also protect leading organizations by performing security audits.
There you go.
I wonder if that's a fun job to be a security auditor.
Who knows?
I mean, that's what the people that wrote today's paper were doing. They do the same thing. Security audits. Okay, well, I think we should wrap it up. Should we do like a little recap?
Sure.
So what's the recap? The recap is even though in theory secret keys have a crazy amount of security in terms of, I guess it's more of a probabilistic security. There's a very low chance that two people generating secret keys will generate the same one. And as long as that doesn't happen or happens with a very low probability, then you're likely to be the only person that has knowledge of your secret key.
That's how by the way, that's how all encryption works, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Even your bank, even your bank, the reason people can't steal your money from the bank or from your debit card or whatever is because this communication happens the same way.
For sure. So this is not really a feature of blockchain. It's more just general cryptography.
Yeah.
And blockchain obviously uses it for the purpose of transactions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry about that.
Bless you.
Good thing I'm on my minus 10 decibel microphone. Nobody heard that sneeze.
I mean, I heard it.
You heard it? Okay, a little bit, yeah, but just a little bit. Minus 10 decibels. Okay, so yeah, that doesn't mean, so the fact that, you know, if you assume that things are happening, that keys are being generated uniformly at random, then you have this amount of security. But like we saw in last week and this week, people don't always generate secret keys at random, whether it's deliberately like last week's episode or whether it's deliberately like last week's episode or possibly by accident in this week's episode. These things do happen, although rarely. And I guess it's good to sort of be aware of, what software you're using, check the addresses that you're or the final secret keys that you're generating, and what address you're sending your ether to, because if it's an invalid address, then you're going to lose your funds forever, right?
Yeah, so maybe it's better to be a bit extra paranoid.
Yeah,
a bit more paranoia to save yourself some money.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you miss copy paste an address that you're sending to, you're screwed, right? In a way, if there's some kind of substitution.
Is that true?
It's like the zero address, right?
Yeah, but I wonder, there's a checksum in there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think there are precautions already to keep you from copy pasting wrong. So the last two digits of the last two digits of the address are actually the first two digits of the hash of the other 158 digits or something.
Okay, yeah, to make sure that the key is internally consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are things to prevent you from copy pasting wrong.
Yeah.
What can mess you up though is if you deliberately pick something that works and just put it in,
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that led us to then, the people in this paper discovered that there's at least one person who's automatically, shall we say, sniping or siphoning, addresses that were clearly not generated at random. And so it's very likely that if you end up doing this, or if you pick up a secret key that's really short, and it only occupies a very small amount of this secret key space, then it's very likely that you'll instantly lose your funds. Which led us to discuss, I guess, kind of the social implications of this, right? Because this, at the end of the day, we're trusting machines and math versus kind of human institutions, which is what central banks are kind of built on.
Yeah. So theoretically, the machines and the math work perfectly, but in practice, there are deviations from this perfect behavior, right?
Yeah. And I guess I wonder what it is that led traditional banks to have all these like insurance layers and everything, right? And I guess it comes not from like machines not operating properly or from having hackers, but I guess people robbing banks and making fraudulent transactions, right? So it's like two sources of danger, or
yeah, I think they just pick the thing that's most cost efficient, right?
Yeah.
They probably calculate how much money they would save by just paying the insurance.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess that's everything, right? We're at the conclusion now.
Yep.
8,000 transactions to the null public key. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to read the future work. What was the future work?
I think it's very standard things, but there's nothing
look at other blockchains. Yeah, they talk about the legal aspect of this, right? That we kind of touched on last time.
I think they bring it up as a potential issue that we'll have to figure out later, probably.
Yeah. Law enforcement.
Is it stealing if you guess someone's private key and take their money?
Yeah. I was thinking about that, and I read I looked for papers kind of trying to deal with that. I found one no, I mean, I guess more like law. Okay. Well, maybe philosophy. I don't know. I found like a document that the U.S. Congress prepared.
Okay.
It's like a 40-page document where they're like, okay, what's Bitcoin? And then they like go section by section about like all the possible legal issues that could come up.
I think it's tricky though, because if you don't declare it a currency, say,
yeah,
then you're just stealing you're stealing some abstract digits or whatever, hex numbers.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
So it's nothing. You're not stealing anything really. But if you declare it as a currency.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the fundamental difference is that the possession here is information, not a physical asset, right?
Exactly. Really weird.
So in the past, property, I mean, I guess outside of intellectual property, but like in general, property is something tangible.
Yeah.
And here, like, yeah, if I guess your private key, with my head, with my mind, then it's like I stole your Bitcoin, right?
So you're not actually physically taking anything from anyone, right? You're just looking at some public information and guessing things yourself. It's not like you're stealing someone's data, right?
Yeah.
You're stealing, I don't even know if you can call it stealing. I guess that's the debate.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Although I think it can boil down to the idea of like intellectual property, right? In terms of like patents or, music, right? Like music, a song is like a point in a super high dimensional space.
Sure, but right? One sec. If you don't tell anyone your song ever,
yeah,
right? And they discover it on their own, and then record that song, then it's whose song is it?
Yeah, so I guess it becomes like I mean, you have to kind of claim you have to attach an identity to a key, right? Or
so like what happens if I guess the private key that corresponds to this empty address? Am I stealing from anybody?
Yeah, I would say no, because there's no link between the address or the secret key and an individual.
Sure, right? But what happens if you come around the week later and say, "Oh, that was my address,"
Yeah, I don't think you could do that. But I think what's gonna like eventually
how do you distinguish
a huge factor? It's gonna be like biometrics, right?
That's gonna be a private key?
Yeah. Like, look, this is my DNA. But this is my public key.
But what stops me from making a separate address?
No, you would, but I mean, you can imagine like on the blockchain, in order to send a transaction, you have to sign it with your saliva or something,
Sure, but then what happens if someone takes a piece of my hair and then signs away my,
Yeah, I mean, I think then you're looking at like physical theft, right?
I don't know. I don't know if I see that happening.
Really? I mean, there's already things like that, right? What's it called? Self-sovereign identity.
That's different. That's not DNA though. I think that's just proving, like making it so that you don't need a driver's license.
Yes, it's attaching, it's putting an individual on the blockchain somehow, right?
Yes, but not attaching it. I don't know if it's attaching it to their money.
No, I don't think now, but it could, right? It could attach it to a public key, for example.
Why would we want that? Then everything is public, and then you can trace all the money all the time.
No, but it's always encrypted or something like that, right?
No, but how do you?
Like maybe you can.
You have to allow people to get multiple addresses, otherwise they can.
Well, if it's still like on a pseudonym basis, right? Like maybe you hash your DNA, and that's a public key on the network, and then you can sign things with your DNA without revealing who you are, right?
But that limits you to one address forever.
I guess, yeah, but so once I buy one exposed. Oh no! I mean, there's like these hierarchical keys that we talked about, right? Maybe you can generate your DNA is like your 12-digit, 12-word Trezor key or something.
Sure, but once I make a transaction to you, you know all the money I had in that account.
Yeah.
Like you can always follow it, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and you still run into the same problem that someone could just guess that, right? And then is that stealing? Like at that point, you can't prove that you didn't do that voluntarily. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do I know that no one actually has the address, the private key corresponding to the empty address?
Yeah.
And if I guess it myself and I take the money, am I stealing?
Yeah. No matter how that key is constructed or anything, you can't know. No, I mean, that's why governments exist, eh? Because they keep track of people. And if you want property, then you need to associate a person to an object or to an entity, right? To an object. So you need someone to govern that. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's like decentralized ways of doing that.
Also, we're talking about we're talking as if we know about all this. We have no idea though.
No idea, but I mean, guys, this is future episodes right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I really want to look into self-sovereign identity.
Yeah, we should one day soon.
Yeah. Well, I guess we have to finish up our series on wallets.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we can do one more, right? I don't know. I think maybe we can try a more conceptual one.
Sure.
Like these ones, the last two were kind of
maybe explain hierarchical wallets.
I'd be down for that.
Okay.
I'd be interested.
I'll think about it.
I sent you a paper that was like 9 pages, not super long. And
if I do that, I'm going to go through the Bitcoin book though. Because that's my favorite reference.
Yeah. You can add a link to your commit on that GitHub, and we can all enjoy it.
Laugh at me. Okay. Okay, so I think, does that wrap it up? I
believe so. So yeah, if anyone has questions or suggestions, email info@ozeki.io, OZEKI. Any sponsorship deals, we're listening. We're
not picky either.
What? Not picky. Yeah. We'll sponsor it. We'll endorse anything.
Yeah.
You listen to podcasts? Sometimes they have to advertise really weird things. I wonder if they I think the latest one is like private hair trimming tools. A lot of podcasts I'm listening to are advertising damn it, I forget the name now. Anyway, it's like pubic hair shavers. Manscaped.
Good old manscaping.
Manscaped.com. Yeah, a lot of them are doing that. And I guess, yeah, it must be good money because it's kind of weird to advertise that. Oh my God. Okay. That's it for today, I would say.
Okay.
All right. See you next week.
Yeah. See you later.
Ciao. Okay. Stop recording.